This episode contains sensitive content. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Culture Podcast, where we uncover the hidden mechanics of high control groups, their tactics, and their impact. And we speak with the survivors who broke free. My name is Derek, and I'm your host.
My name is Trinity, and I'm also your host. On this podcast, we explore cult life as real people who have lived through the life-changing process of leaving a high control group.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. Once again, I'm here as always with my co-host Trent. Welcome.
Hello.
And I'm really happy to be joined by someone who is not part of the Jehovah's Witness organization, and frankly is also not part of the Mormon organization. Amy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So I gave away the spoiler right away. You grew up in the member of the LDS faith,
Yeah.
also the Mormon faith. So I guess we're probably going to chat about that just a teeny tiny bit.
Yes, they used to be called Mormons, and I will always refer to it to Mormonism. But a lot of TBMs give me a hard time and they correct me and they say, no, it's the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah,
Or no, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it's like, I'm not going to use that really long name.
that's a lot.
Why do you think they did that?
Oh, because Nelson wanted to reinforce that they are a Christian religion and that they believe in Jesus Christ.
Now, one of the things that may happen on this conversation, I hope that you're willing to have this mindset of also education.
Yeah.
Something that we talk about often is the jargon of these different groups.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've learned as I start to, Trent and I were talking before recording, I really have a fascination, a curiosity with many things. And sometimes it's hard to find time to like we were just talking about, I was researching Plato's The Republic and just kind of going into that. I have a fascination for a lot of philosophy and old writers and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of weird shit with Mormons that they don't readily talk about, like in the garments and the temple, and there's just some really, really fascinating things that you don't, even as someone that grows up Mormon, from what I understand, you don't really start to know this too until you get, is it confirmed?
Well, luckily, I had a mother that was a convert to the church. So she actually grew up Presbyterian and she went to BYU as a non-member to study nursing.
Mm.
So when I went through the temple, she pulled out her apron. But you can see all this stuff now online now. It literally looks like a leaf apron.
Yeah.
And there are these temple robes that you move from side to side. It's very ritualistic in the temple. They do have temple classes, but I'll be honest, they don't do a really great job in explaining what you'll be covenanting and promising to do. And so even now, there are people that say when they go through the temple, they feel like they're blindsided
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have as much of an ability to say, yes, I consent.
Mm.
And they feel like they're pressured.
Yeah, it's very secretive. You get in there,
Yeah.
and then you're just like, you're in it. You've gone too far. There's almost a point of no return.
Yeah.
One of the things that brought up that my bringing up the jargon is one thing you mentioned very quickly was TBM.
Mhm.
What does that mean?
It's true believing member.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if we have, I'd like to think that because we grew up Jehovah's Witness, we have a lot of Jehovah's Witness listeners. So I think they'll be fascinated to hear some of these things because I've always referred to us as like cult cousins.
Yeah.
We both been out there doing the ministry, but the other one was just slightly wrong. They were off.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so if you do find yourself saying something, just maybe keep in mind that there might be listeners who'd be fascinated to know a little bit more context and a little bit more of a deep dive of things, which I'm a fan of as well. And
Mhm.
if I say something too, please call me out and say, "Hey, I don't understand that." I think that will make for a good conversation as well.
Okay.
So what I usually like to do too when we're chatting is just to go all the way back. So I don't know much about you, and I'm excited because I hope to
Okay.
learn. Were you born in? What was the kind of the origin story of you and your Mormon upbringing?
Yes, I was born into this church. My grandpa was actually born in Idaho, on a farm. I think he had, gosh, I think 16 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he was smoking and doing all kinds of things at the age of, like, maybe 6. So he was born in the church, but didn't become active until later, but then met my grandma, who was, an Italian Catholic in LA, and, she converted from Catholicism to Mormonism, and then my grandpa came back to the Mormon church and had 4 boys and raised them all in the church. And my a lot of my actually, well, so my dad's still in, my mom's still in. A lot of my cousins have left, but some are still in. And then my 3 other uncles are all fully in.
Mm,
Yes, and my dad was a bishop my entire youth, and when I say a bishop, that means basically a reverend. So, he led so many different types of congregations my entire youth, and then was an attorney and stopped working at the age of 42 and put his career on hold for 3 years, and we lived in South America when he was a mission president.
wow.
So, my roots in Mormonism, I have so many people that message me on my account. I run this Instagram account called Unorthodox Spirituality, where some people are like, well, you don't know. How would you know? You weren't raised, or they assume I wasn't Mormon. And it's like, yeah, I was. And in some ways, I might know more about the religion than you do.
Yeah. Yeah, the parallel for Jehovah's Witnesses may be, maybe, I'm not fully certain, but an elder would be kind of the top in the congregation.
Oh,
So
okay.
the tier structure is kind of elder, then ministerial servant, and then kind of your rank and file are called publishers, and they kind of do all the ministry work, door to door work, and then just above that are kind of full time ministers called pioneers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but your dad being a bishop. Um, No doubt that may have had some extra weight on your shoulders.
Yes, but it's interesting. So, I don't know, if y'all had ever did, like, seminary. Is that a thing in
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, in Mormonism, now granted, I was raised in California, so I wasn't raised in Utah where they have seminary baked into their school system. So I had to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning to go to basically what they call, well, they don't call it Bible study, but they call it seminary, where you're studying the Book of Mormon. And my dad told me when I didn't graduate because I missed too many classes, he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I didn't graduate either."
Oh, wow.
So, but I didn't think that that would be the case for my dad. But yeah, he didn't graduate from seminary.
Interesting. Was your father a little bit more loose with things with you kind of privately? Or how was that dynamic?
Not really. I mean, I would have discussions about religion, philosophy, and things with him as a young child. I've always been a very deep thinker, but he has always been very true to his religion. And I don't know if you've heard of Mormon Stories. John DeLynn runs a
Mm,
podcast there.
yeah.
I've heard him say it's very interesting how some people will use logic in their own life and in their own career, but they won't use that
Yeah. Yeah.
in religion. And so, yeah, sometimes I get frustrated about that.
I usually find the dynamic with that is once you have the ingrained reality from childhood, the indoctrination,
Uh-huh.
there's no fighting God. And so it's like you may have this framework for, ask the yes behind things, understand the why behind things, use these logic frameworks,
Mhm.
but just have faith. God is the ultimate answer to everything, and that's what I think muddies the waters a little bit.
Yes, and some people I've talked to so many people that are nuanced, so they're still in and they're trying to make it work, and then when they find out some of these truth claims about Joseph Smith or polygamy, they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna put that on the shelf," right?
Mm,
Or, "I'll make sense of this because Joseph Smith didn't have sex with any of those women." Well, he did.
mm. That's interesting that you say that because I think that's a Mormon term. I'll put that on the shelf.
Mhm.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think, we had another podcast, where we chatted with another Mormon, and he said the same term. I don't know if you remember that,
Mm.
Trent. I like to think of it as mental gymnastics.
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm gonna just kind of yeah, I'll put that on the shelf. I'll kind of
Mhm.
jump over that right now, and I'll get back to it maybe one day, but you never do.
Or you do, once you're older and then you realize, "Oh, this
Yeah,
never sat well with me," and
yeah.
then you go on the whole deconstruction.
Well, what I find is, and I'm sure this is similar in the Mormon faith and any high control group or cult, is because you have such a big spiritual routine,
Yes.
you just don't have time, one, for free thinking, and that's part of the cult structure. If you do have a question, they go and give you the tools or the areas to answer those questions. And ultimately, you're just so busy that even if you have something, you're like, well, I got my own kind of responsibilities in life. I got church responsibilities,
Yeah.
that you're just constantly like moving.
Well, and the stakes are so high. If you sit back and question anything, it unravels very quickly. And I think that it's a self defense mechanism to not address those things.
Yes. And they keep women very busy in Mormonism. A lot of Mormonism would never run
Mm.
without women. They,
I think a lot of things in society would not run without women, by the way.
so true. Yes.
Uh,
Oh gosh. The emotional labor and the physical labor too, right? So women putting all these activities on, and then but at the end of the day, they have to get approval from men on everything.
mm,
I mean, Relief Society, have you heard of Relief Society before, the
No.
organization? Okay.
mm,
So Relief Society in Mormonism is an organization, and I'd have to look this up because I'm not sure when it started as an organization date wise, but I recently heard that it used to actually be an autonomous, separate organization where basically women could make their own decisions, run their show, and but then that changed. I believe it was 1970, somewhere around there,
mm,
and it really upset a lot of women because then basically if they had a budget or anything that they wanted to do, it always had to be approved by a man.
mm.
So was this like a sect of Mormonism or was it a totally separate thing?
So when you talk about elders in your church and Jehovah Witness, so they have the priesthood for men, and I can't remember uh, all of the titles. I
Isn't it
should
great to slowly forget?
I should it is actually nice.
Yeah.
I think it actually the highest one is priest, and I think you have to be a bishop or, like, a mission president to get there. So not everyone does, and then it goes down. But men or boys get the priesthood literally, I believe it's age 12. So they
Oh,
have more authority and power than their own mothers at the age of 12.
it seems like, the Jehovah's Witness side with women is even far less.
Oh, really?
I mean, they call them sisters, brothers and sisters.
Okay, so do we.
The sisters, basically just, helped cook and clean.
Uh-huh.
They could preach.
But that's about it.
That's about it. They were never any high level positions or mid tier positions to help with organizing anything of substance.
But when you say preach, do you mean teach Sunday school?
Well, that's another thing. So the way the witness organization is designed, everyone just sits in the main auditorium. There are no separate classes, schools, Sunday
Oh.
schools, things for children. When
Oh.
you're learning about Armageddon, everyone is learning about it at the same tier, the same level, which is also crazy. But yeah, so preaching would literally just be door to door, or now they do
Oh.
cart witnessing. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So they used to have church for 3 hours. So we would all now they cut it down to 2 hours. Thank God Nelson did that. But Nelson just died last week. He was 101.
Whoa, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a heart surgeon.
Hmm.
So he went in 2018, and then he died just a couple days ago or last week or something. And now Oaks is going to be in charge, and he used to be an attorney and judge, and he is very legalistic, very against homophobia or like gay,
Mhm.
trans rights. So things are going to get probably worse for
Yeah.
families that have gay and trans kids.
Yeah, I don't mean to jump around, but, I find when we talk, and especially I'm appreciative of you of explaining things, what in the Mormon faith is gonna happen to Nelson? Like, where is he
Where does he
going
go?
now that he's passed?
Oh, well, they believe that he will be in the celestial kingdom. So that's another conversation. I don't know
There are
what
3
you
tiers?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So celestial, terrestrial, and telestial. And apparently, Mormons don't believe in hell.
Oh. Well, that's convenient, I guess. So my understanding is, the tiers are also based on tithing. So the free tier is kind of the bottom one. It's, you know, I kid the free tier, the free app, but you have to pay more to get higher. Is that kind of the easy kind of take on that?
Kind of. So technically, if you do not pay 10% of your income, you cannot qualify to have a temple recommend. And then they have all these qualifying questions. Ugh, last time I was in, granted I left a little over 2 years ago, I believe there was 10 to 12 different questions, I think. Yeah.
And so with Nelson being at the highest tier, I mean, he was the main prophet. I mean, shouldn't he be
Uh-huh.
of an even higher tier, or he's sharing the highest tier with others?
No. So the celestial kingdom is technically where God will be.
So it's essentially heaven.
Yes, it's essentially heaven. That's a good
Mm,
point. You point out that they don't really refer to it as heaven, they call it the celestial kingdom. But it wasn't until I left that I realized, or well, that I was deconstructing, that I was realizing how transactional it is. 3
yeah.
kingdoms, and I was like, I don't think I believe in any of this.
Now, Jehovah's Witnesses have an interesting theology. Only 144,000 go to heaven.
What?
That is based on a scripture in Revelation.
12,000 people out of the 12 tribes of Israel, essentially, is what it's meant to represent.
Ah,
And then there's a spirit anointed class, which the governing body is made up of, I don't know, 8 to 14 old men. And they're all anointed, so they're all going to go to this 144,000 class.
okay.
And it's one of those things too where everything just falls apart the more you like. I mean, that's such a small number. Like, what are we doing here?
Oh, yeah.
And then basically everyone else is going to be resurrected on a paradise earth after Armageddon. And the planet will be restored like a paradise like conditions that Adam and Eve have.
Okay. Hmm.
So only that 144,000 are ruling up in heaven as kings and priests over everyone that is on planet Earth. And
Mm.
so that's a really interesting take too, because, Trent and I've teased about it before is like, I mean, is the Earth going to keep expanding? Because if everyone's there, like, is it gonna be jam packed in there? Like, how does this actually work? And then, if someone dies at 90, are they resurrected at 30? Are they resurrected at 20? what's the prime number age that we're going to come back as? So it's one of those things again where a lot of things start to fall apart the more you start to kind of use your logic brain.
Yeah, Mormons believe that they will be resurrected at their prime state. So
A very
when
similar concept.
when you're young, and then they do believe that women will be having babies for eternity. And I've always told my dad, sounds like hell to me.
Babies for eternity.
Like way to create a heaven, a man-made heaven.
Oh yeah.
Like men obviously do not know what women want.
I mean, would you have birth pangs for eternity?
Well, I've asked that, and some men that I've asked are like, "Oh no, no, they're just spiritual heaven and or children, and that'll be different." Okay.
Where's
Yeah.
that in the Bible or the Book of Mormon? That sounds like they made that up. Um, so and again, I appreciate you highlighting some of these extra things because I find it fascinating. I know our listeners were as well. But so your father was a bishop,
Uh-huh.
and you kind of grew up in this faith. What was your early childhood like, kind of doing all these things that are required of a kind of an everyday Mormon member of the church?
Yeah, I was pretty devout when I was younger, and when I went to high school, everyone referred to me as, the Mormon girl because I lived in the Bay Area, right? And there were maybe out of the whole high school, maybe like 5 Mormon kids.
Did you have to strictly only associate with other Mormons?
I didn't. So I would say that my family was probably a little bit more open-minded than others. We didn't look at outsiders as heathens. And, but I will say, I still remember when I was in high school, like looking at people drinking, and I would look down on them and I judged them.
Yeah.
Um,
You had pity on them, like they were thrown about like a sheep without a shepherd?
Kind of, yeah. And I think now that I've left, I actually judge people less.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I part of this conversation I look forward to chatting about is where you are at with your mentals and your heart and your spirituality. So
Yeah.
I look forward to that chat when we get there. Because we probably align on some of these things for sure based on looking at your account, or your Instagram account. Um, so you were allowed to hang out. Jehovah's Witnesses, we pretty much were not allowed to hang out with anyone that was not witnesses.
Okay.
Very, very much. Anyone that was not a Jehovah's Witness was labeled as worldly,
Oh, yeah.
and worldly ones were not going to make it into the promised new system of things. So the only reason we would be hanging out with them is try to convert them.
Or keeping it very surface level, you know. But it sounds like you still grew up with a sense of separateness.
Yes, and I will say there's an aspect of Mormonism that I still see today. The community is pretty insular, and there's enough Mormons where if a lot of your friends are Mormon, you'll think, "Oh, this is just normal."
You probably had a different take not being in Utah,
Yes.
being a little bit separate, having a little bit of taste of the world. So I'm sure that helped shape your dynamic a little bit. So you said you were also pretty hardcore growing up. Um, what does that mean for your kind of trajectory growing up in the church, and also your trajectory also as a woman or a sister in the church?
Sister. Um, I still, to this day, have never been drunk before.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's not because I don't think I can drink. I mean, I could touch substances if I wanted to, but I don't have a desire to. So, as a child and as a youth, I never really touched alcohol. I did end up actually dating a guy a while back. This was years ago that actually grew up Mormon and he smoked weed. And I did smoke a couple puffs, but really that I'm still pretty innocent in some ways. but I don't feel the need to go down all of those avenues either.
Yeah. Did you have, an interesting relationship with, caffeine or coffee? What was your first coffee, scenario outside the faith?
Well, so I don't know if your listeners know this, but technically you are allowed to have soda. So in Utah, there are all these swig chains.
Okay.
So soda is big, but yeah, tea and coffee are still prohibited. I drink coffee every day now.
Yeah,
That's my only vice, really.
yeah.
And I don't consider it a vice.
Was it, interesting to kinda jump ahead, like, to have that first cup of coffee? Did you feel, like, a sense of rebelliousness and uncertainty and easiness? How was that?
Yeah, so the first time I had anything, well, a hot beverage outside of hot chocolate was a chai tea.
Yum.
And how old were you?
I was actually in high school, and I remember feeling super guilty when I had
Ugh,
it. It
yeah.
was a non-Mormon guy who took me to Starbucks and with a couple other girls, and yeah, and so that kinda was my intro to that.
I always find the fascinating things are these little unspoken things that people that grow up in a high control group or a cult experience that seems so normalized for everyone else. Something as innocent or as simple as having a tea, and you feel a certain way about it, where most of the population on this planet will be like, okay, it's just tea.
I know.
And it's just the weird indoctrination that we get. Now, what was the reasoning behind the lack of? Was it like a stimulant? Is that why you couldn't have tea or coffee?
Apparently, but back in the day, Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, they all used to drink. I've read certain things that have said that they changed the rules when they thought that the men were drinking uncontrollably.
Mm.
The
So,
classic Jehovah's Witness would be the new light. They received new light to change a rule.
oh,
We often refer to it as moving the goalpost.
yeah.
Uh, so witnesses, anytime there's new doctrinal changes, they'll quote some random scripture that says, something about new light, and then they'll just say, "Oh, this rule's changed. Like forever, we weren't allowed to have beards,
Oh,
and forever, like almost since the beginning, since like the 1920s,
when did
um,
they change that?
about a year
Just
ago."
yeah, a year or two ago.
So, if you want to serve in the temple as a Mormon, you cannot have a beard as a man.
Wow.
It's so wild.
We really are cousin religions in
It
so many ways.
really is wild, and even at BYU, so my husband went to BYU, Idaho. It was awful. We lived there in Rexburg, Idaho for 2 years. I hated it, and he could not have a beard when he attended college there, and I remember he had a mustache because apparently mustaches were allowed,
Same.
and he looked really bad with a mustache,
And
but
now
I
mustaches are in.
they are, but not every man can pull off a
That's
big
true.
mustache.
Yeah, it's these weird things where, and I know that deep down on the witness side, I'm sure it's the same on the Mormon side.
Mhm.
If you're going to try to convert someone, you're not going to really tell them all these weird little things you can and can't do. You're not going to tell them that you're wearing, white drawers underneath your outfit. Uh, there's just, and also that you get, forgive me if I get this wrong, but you get like a separate name
In the temple, yes, you
in
do.
the temple. I don't know if
Mhm.
you knew about that, Trent, but
Yeah.
there's just like a secret name you get that you're not allowed to tell anyone. Like, there's just weird, 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 weird stuff.
Women, so depending on the day that you go through, all women, I believe, get the same name. So there's really nothing
Oh.
special about it.
But from my understanding, you don't really know that when you're in. You think that it's special.
That's true. Yes.
And then it's only when you find out, I think it's like, oh, it was just based on the month or the day you were in the temple.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
And the
it's like,
screwed up thing is men are told, so when they get sealed, they are told what their wife's name is, but they're not allowed to be told what their husband's name is because the men
Mm.
are the ones that have to call the wife.
Mm.
Like, what?
Yeah, these are the examples of the weird, culty type things where, if missionaries were at the door, they're not going to really tell you this stuff. They
No.
have that kind of their strict things to try to get you in. And I don't even want to get into, we'll probably mention it, just baptism for people that aren't even there or already dead.
Baptisms of the dead.
That's a pretty wild concept as well.
Well, yeah, and talk about no consent too.
Yeah.
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 I'm curious real quick about what your routine was like growing up because dad's a bishop, you're pretty devout.
Yep.
You're doing seminary. Was that every morning?
It was expected to go every morning during the week. Yeah, at 6 a.m.
And so how often were you meeting with the group, like your church?
every Sunday. And at that time, it was 3 hours.
Okay. So instead of, because witnesses had multiple meetings, it was like 3 meetings, an hour and a half or so each. But you're doing a 3 hour stint on
We
Sunday.
used to have that. So,
Oh.
back when my parents were younger, they had it broken up throughout the week. And then they realized this is too hard for families coming back and forth. So, we're just going to have it all on Sunday. So, we usually meet. I shouldn't say we because I no longer attend. But
You've
Mormons
let the slip happen a few times. It's okay.
Mormons meet sacrament usually first, and then they take the sacrament, the bread and the water, and then they have the kids go to primary, and that's for 1 hour, and then the last hour, the men and the women they separate. So the women go to Relief Society, and then the men go to a priesthood session. And while the kids are in primary, people usually do Sunday school. But now they've cut it down to 2 hours, and they rotate between Sunday school and Relief Society and priesthood the second hour.
I think there's like a dumbing down and a less of the load on people just to try to keep people in, keep the money coming in. That's my take because that's how I see it with the witnesses. I remember just intense stuff, like intense meetings, intense and doctrinal things. We used to have meetings where we would have a test. We'd show up and there was literally just, I don't know, 30 questions. And we would get there and it would just be silent for like 45 minutes to an hour. And we're having to write down the questions and we have to get these questions right at all ages. If you're old enough to read and write, you've got to fill something out and you'll be judged on that later by your parents or whatnot if you're not getting it right. It's just intense stuff.
Mm.
And nowadays they just watch videos. There's monitors in the hall and they're just watching videos. So it's a big dumbing down, to try to keep people going and less intense.
So tell me, are your reverends, are they required to go to seminary? No.
Well, yes and no, because there's elder school.
Yeah, yeah. So all
There's
the witnesses are unpaid volunteers,
Okay, same in
um,
Mormonism.
and I would say yes, there is elder school, but it's a very quick process, from my understanding.
Okay.
Um,
No required missions or anything like that, but you do have a quota for how often you're going door to door.
Oh.
yeah, you have to meet
Mm.
hours in the ministry. They actually
Ugh.
track hours. Um, and really, what we learned later is there's just a hidden manual called "Shepherding the Flock of God"
Hmm.
that they're not allowed to tell anyone, including the elders' wives, don't know about it. And that's basically how they do anything. If anything comes up, like a judicial meeting or kind of a bad situation where two young kids are fooling around, they just turn to the manual, and that's kind of how they're taught to shepherd the flock.
Well, there's a handbook that Mormonism has. So, um,
Pretty similar.
Yep.
it's funny. Well, it's not. It's funny because some old lady yesterday was telling me that's not true. So I was telling her about this new trans bill that the Mormon Church came out with. that basically said that trans people are infringing on their religious freedom. And I was telling her, I don't know if you know this, but in your handbook, there is a trans policy that the Mormon church published last year that tells trans people that they have to be escorted to the bathroom. They cannot hold a calling. They cannot have a temple recommend. They cannot go to any overnight activity. They're basically treating them like they're a sex offender.
Mm,
Wow.
It's and what is very sad to me is I've talked to people when I was attending. I talked to people and I said, "Doesn't this make you angry? This is wrong. This is homophobic." And so many of them were like, "Well, I don't want my kids in the same bathroom." They are scared of trans people.
mhm.
And I've met some beautiful trans people, and I think they actually have a lot to teach us about what it means to embody yourself as an
Yeah.
individual. And I don't think God really cares about gender.
No. No, it's I run a facility that, has, lockers for both, male and female,
Mhm.
and constantly, running into that situation with trans where people are upset, and I always just go back to this mindset is like, do you think they wanna go through all of this, just to go into another locker room?
Yeah.
Like, so they could see body parts of whatever, like, no way, like, that's not the move to go through all of this, like maybe an operation or, different clothes or just the way they carry themselves, their community, and like their end goal is to bother you somehow. That's their plan. It just
Yes.
the logic behind it doesn't make sense that people it's like they're in their own lane. Why are you bothering with them? They're not bothering you.
Yeah, and I think there are only 1% of the population, but people seem to think that sexuality is chosen when really research has shown that sexuality is on a scale.
A
And
spectrum, yeah.
And has been forever.
I'm just like, if you're secure with yourself, leave people alone. Let them do what they want to do. I don't care if someone's gay, trans.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually celebrate when people are happy and healthy. That's what people should want, people to be happy, healthy,
Yeah.
and whole.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing about organized religion, in my opinion, it seems like we may align. If we don't, I'd love to hear your take. Um, there's just something about organized religion that creates an us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
And
Every opportunity you have to create another them is used, I think.
yeah, every opportunity for that exactly is like, well, they're not like us, so therefore we need to be bold in our proclamation against them. And kind of create this friction. And it's like the other half is just the other, or they're just living. So it's obviously a huge debate, that's ongoing. But spiritual, yeah, I think gender identity, if you actually look at the historical references over time,
Yeah.
even like in the Roman Empire, like many men love to always quote the Romans. Gender fluidity was all over the place in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this isn't a new a thing, but a lot of people seem to forget the past very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how witnesses would treat the same scenario, and from what I remember, it was very homophobic.
Yeah. Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
You're not allowed to be a witness if you're gay. You cannot be openly gay. You have to push your feelings down and only practice heterosexuality or asexuality
Mhm.
rather than
Yeah. I think.
homosexuality.
Yeah, I think Trent and I were out before more of the kind of transgender issues became to the forefront. So I'm not sure
Okay.
how they address it now, but I definitely remember having um, a woman in my congregation that was probably in her 30s that had come back to the witness faith.
Mhm.
And she basically, as Trent said, just could never practice her own way of lifestyle if she wanted to be in the church in the Jehovah's Witness faith. So she just committed to always being single the rest of her life and never acting out on her desires. And even when I was in, I was like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the argument that a lot of religious people from high demand religions will say, "Well, if I'm single and I'm heterosexual, I have to be celibate. So if people are gay, they need to be celibate too." Yeah, but you get to marry someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you marry someone, your religion will celebrate that marriage. Whereas if you're gay or trans and you decide to marry someone, you're still not accepted. It's awful.
And the thing I think about too when you say that is someone that is made more of a traditional marriage between a male and female, a man and a woman, they at least have the hope that they could one day be married,
Uh-huh.
that they could date and find that partner, find that person. But someone in that demographic, gay, lesbian, trans, they have no hope. And I think that's just a horrible outlook on life. Like, and the witnesses believe, like we had mentioned, after Armageddon, they'll wake up in the new system or they'll make it through and be there. And then it's like, and now I can start living.
No, yeah.
That's the end goal. It's like, so if I have to put off my homosexual tendencies now, I'll be somehow cleansed in this new earth.
Like it's something to be cleansed of. Yep.
Yeah. But you bring up a good point about and then I'll be whole or then I'll be happy. And I think a lot of religion taps on or into always looking into the future of eternity or happiness or the celestial kingdom or heaven, whatever you want to call it. Whereas they don't talk enough about how do you be happy now?
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
do you embody and be present now? And if your religion really is the good news, you should be happy now. How is it adding on to your life? Right? Or is it
Yeah.
sucking away your happiness?
Totally agree.
Well, I think it goes back to that they just stay real busy, and hopefully that future happiness will be here. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's not even fully thought of. Like a lot of sisters in the congregation, they're happy in the moment. They're raising a family. They're caught up in their responsibilities. They have a sense of purpose. But I think
Uh-huh.
sometimes deep down in those quiet moments, it's just like I'm exhausted and I'm not able to fully be my true authentic self. And then it's like, all right, bury it, back to it, and I think that's a vicious cycle that we can get into.
Yes, and at least for women in high control religions, there's not a lot of support in them becoming an individual and differentiating
Mm,
themselves outside of the family. So there aren't a lot of messages like go to school,
yeah.
be your own person, figure out who you are and how you can contribute to the world. No, it's like your end goal is to get married and have babies.
Yep.
Hmm. You no doubt watched Unorthodox on Netflix. Have you seen this?
No, uh-uh.
Oh, this will be amazing. So it's a mini series called Unorthodox, and it follows an Hasidic Jewish community. And
Oh,
it's based off a real life story of a young woman that escapes because all she basically was a baby maker in that environment in New York. It's amazing.
mm.
I think
Oh,
it's
I'll check it out.
like 6 episodes, and that's what comes to my mind when you talk about like that, where it's just like that's my lot in life. I don't have any other options to pursue my own passions, music, the arts, school.
Yeah, which you can imagine if women end up deconstructing as they get older, they can get angry because they'll
Yeah.
feel like I sacrificed everything for something that I shouldn't have.
Witnesses, and this was always been a dumb thing in my mind. Witnesses were never allowed to go to higher education.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why?
Uh, I think deep down they knew why, but they had other ideas about how they explained it to us, but focus on the ministry. That's basically, you don't want to do anything but after you graduate high school, pursue the ministry work. And so, but many people, it's like, oh, well, you're not going to take those philosophy classes. You're not going to tap your
Mm.
brain and kind of think about things,
Or learn
because
about other religions or history.
that's where you're going to learn that stuff and really kind of get to the thick of a lot of these philosophies and history
Uh-huh.
classes and things. And they're like, nope. And just recently, that's another one they overturned.
Yeah.
And now just all of a sudden it's fine.
Wow.
So, for anyone like myself, I would have loved to have done that. And I'm 43 now. And that's why I'm like, okay, I'm going to try. It's challenging now, but, that's one of those kind of bullshit things that it's like, ugh, this new light, this switcheroo. I don't even want to get into the blood doctrine and all these other witness things, but um, did you end up going, and I assume you got baptized in a font?
I did at the age of 8. That's when they do it in Mormonism. And
Wow.
they confirm you too. So um, it's usually the father, if you have a father who has the priesthood and is active, and they give you a blessing. Usually it's the same Sunday. So sometimes you can get baptized on a Saturday or, yeah, usually a Saturday. And then on Sunday in church, you'll get confirmed in front of the entire
Mhm.
congregation.
Now, was this kind of a big one with giant lions or tigers, and it's kind of this crazy looking thing, or is it more subdued?
No, you're probably thinking of
You know what I'm talking about, though.
the baptismal font.
Yeah.
Um, you've probably seen photos of the baptismal font, probably in a temple in
Hmm.
Utah where they do baptisms of the dead.
So that's only
Mm.
for the baptisms of the dead, that more kind of grandiose one.
Usually, yeah, they usually do baptisms in a church, and honestly, it looks like a bathtub, sort of. It's kind of higher up, and they fill it up, and then um, usually the father, they dunk the
Mm.
child into the water.
Yeah, for any that are interested, I definitely recommend Google searching that. It's a really interesting imagery for, some of these things that we're not supposed to know about and not see. Now, I do want to get to some of your deconstruction, and I like to call it kind of the waking up
Yes.
moments.
Mhm.
So, what was that process? How old were you? Where were you at in your life when you started to deconstruct?
Oh, I don't even know. It was a slow burn, I'll be honest. I was nuanced and more liberal for years, and I would refer to myself as a feminist. But I would say Prop 8 was very hard on me. I am pro LGBTQ rights, and that never sat well for me. I believe that religion and government should remain separate. And I was never campaigning and calling or donating any of my time or money to that. And so when that happened, I mean, that was years ago. I think it was around 2008, maybe
Yep.
2010,
Yep.
somewhere around there.
2008. Yeah.
And that bugged me. So that was the start of it. And then as time went on, I went to church in Palo Alto. That is Silicon Valley, as they call it. And it is more progressive there. So I think I stayed a member for as long as I did because it was more progressive there. You would hear people talk more openly about things. Like I went to a singles ward where we had a really compassionate bishop, and he would even say, it's okay if you look at the Book of Mormon as stories and not as literal
Mm.
stories that actually happened. And I was at a point in my religious beliefs where I had to look at the Book of Mormon as, I don't think these stories actually happened historically. And I was a history major at UCLA. So I've always been a deep thinker, and I was scared to do a deep dive in the historical background of Mormonism. But once I started looking into polygamy, Joseph Smith more,
Hmm.
uh, I saw that He married himself, I believe it is at least 22 women, even before he sealed himself to Emma.
Some very young.
Ugh, yeah, numerous girls that were 14 and 15. And I've heard people say, oh, no, that was the legal age when they got married. Then, no, it's not. Do a Google basic search. It's 22 to 23.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was absolutely not okay. And then him using uh, basically a threat of, well, you need to marry me or you will not be exalted. So just a lot of yuckiness, right? And as a woman, I was like, I don't think I can reconcile a lot of this. And then also the worshiping of prophets. So they have leadership there where it's three main prophets, but one is the head, and then they have two counselors.
Mm.
So Nelson died recently. It'll be Oaks. We don't know who the two counselors are, but they will be having general conference this weekend,
Oh boy.
and they might be announcing it there. I'm not sure. And then they have a quorum of the 12 and then a quorum of the 70. So the way the church is built, it's very much like a corporation. And a lot of their talks a lot of their talks are based on prophets because they believe that prophets speak to God. But what I realized was there was not enough talk about God and
Yeah.
Jesus. And I wanted more talk about Jesus Christ and more talk about the Bible. And it wasn't until I left and I started visiting other Christian churches that I realized I, I, I hardly know anything about the Bible.
Hmm.
And the bishops at our church, they're not required to go to seminary. So that means a lot of the lessons are pretty fluff and on the surface. They can't really dig into the historical concepts and debate scripture.
Hmm.
And I wanted that.
Yeah.
So how did these things culminate into leaving?
Yeah. So I was in a ward in the East Bay and I had a lot of bad experiences there. I could probably do another whole episode about this, but I had men telling me that I shouldn't be working. I had experiences with women that basically tried to keep me in line, which is a form of misogyny. So when I would say in class, I actually, I don't know if I believe that all of these stories in the Book of Mormon are historical. I think they may just be allegorical stories that
Mm.
you can learn lessons from. And I would have women just like, what? Right? But the church since recently, about a couple years ago, did say that the Book of Mormon is not a history book because there have been a lot of people that have come out and have shown that there have been historical inaccuracies. So there you go.
Yeah, it's what I say is like the math stops mathing, like it just
Yeah.
you start to do the equation and it just starts to like this just isn't adding up. I know one of the
Yes.
big ones for Mormons is they've talked about, and I may be way off, um, but they've talked about some of these early battles in America where there's just no archaeological evidence whatsoever,
Uh huh.
and it's just like there has to be.
There were no horses back when they said that there were horses. Yes.
It's like where's the bodies? Where's some armor, some swords, something
Uh
in the
huh.
ground, much less horses. And it's that type of stuff. If like it goes back to that thing of like your logic brain, you just skip over it because you're like, I can't. I've been told these things. I got to believe this, but eventually, it adds up where you finally say no more. So what was the process of finally you've said no more mentally, but you kind of had to start walking through that physically?
Yeah.
Yeah, what does leaving look like?
Well, so it was gradual for me. I realized that, I started to visit other Mormon churches, other wards nearby, just because I told my husband, is it our ward that's a problem for me or is it Mormonism? And I realized It's Mormonism, because I had problems with Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. And I realized, you know what? I don't know if I believe in a lot of this stuff. And I don't like how they prop him up like he was an amazing man. Now, granted, he did do some good things, but he was very flawed. And luckily, I think they're being a little bit more honest about some things. Not honest enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But when I realized I couldn't do it anymore and it was taking effect on my mental health and also my body, I was recently telling someone, so I'm in graduate school in social work, so I'll be in LCSW. And we recently did a journal, like a mental health journal, where every day we would check in with ourselves, see how we're feeling. And we had to say, where are we feeling those feelings in our body? And I realized I couldn't even say where I felt those feelings in my body. I've been so disconnected from my body because when you grow up in a high control religion, you're told your body is wrong and evil.
Mhm.
And so I shut down my body to
Yeah.
survive.
Makes sense. I
Yeah.
understand completely.
Yeah.
Did your husband leave with you?
No, he's still attending.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
How's that dynamic?
It's tough. I'll be honest. It's not so bad now because we've been doing this for 2 years. So he's still in, but I wouldn't say he's super by the book. So we don't do family home evening with our kids. We're not sitting down and reading the Book of Mormon. um, he'll go to church and then I'll go to my church. So I go to an Episcopal church now. And they're pretty progressive. So, like, they'll have female reverends,
Oh, great.
women are preaching, they're giving blessings, and you don't hear people wielding patriarchy or saying, you're going to hell. It's pretty much messages about the Bible and Jesus and God and loving humanity.
What you were looking for.
Yes, and so my husband and my kids come to my church sometimes. And then actually my parents came and visited my church a couple weekends ago, and the pastor gave a really incredible sermon about unity,
Mhm.
talked about Charlie Kirk, talked
Yeah.
about how a lot of the values that he believed in he does not agree with.
Yeah.
But he said, I think we need more open dialogue,
Yeah.
respectful dialogue on each side, and there's too much division right now.
Well, I think you said it earlier, there has to be a lot of nuance with everything. And I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't do open dialogue anymore. I think my take is if you sit down with most people one on one or a very small group, you'll find that you can have a good conversation. It's when it becomes a larger group, when we become a mob, is when it starts to create problems. But most people can be fairly rational if you kind of sit with them.
It depends too, and if someone's ego and identity is completely wrapped up in their religion and they have to be right,
Yeah.
then some people literally don't have the ability
Yeah.
to be able to talk about their religion with people that don't agree with everything that they believe in. And I'm at a point where I can actually sit down with people that are Catholic and I'll be like, "Tell me about your religion. I think
Hmm.
that's interesting."
Yeah, I think that's a great spot to be at. Trent and I are both agnostic, but I'm very,
Okay.
and I think Trent's very much the same. I'm very open to all things,
Yeah.
and who knows where I'll be down the line. But I don't operate in kind of an atheist, angry space. I really hope that everyone truly can find whatever version of God or spirituality works for them, whatever they need.
Yes.
It's always great when they can find that.
I do think it is important to embrace your anger, though, because anger
Mhm.
often is a sign that your boundaries have been crossed.
Mm.
And often anger is a manifestation of grief. You're sad.
Yeah, my take on anger, and we actually just chatted about this on a pod before, is like every other emotion. Don't bury it. Sit with it.
Uh huh.
Be with it, and try to find a way to navigate through it as best as possible. some people stay in the anger phase forever, and that could be damaging.
Yes.
But definitely don't skip it. Um, it's again one of those things. I wanted to touch. So, like, how is the system of, did you get excommunicated? Did you kind of just stop kind of going? The witness term is fade, just kind of faded away a little bit.
Yes. So I told my bishop why I didn't want to attend. And I said, here are ways for your church to be better. Because currently, here are some things that are happening in your ward. I don't even know if you know this, but your culture in your ward is very top down and very black and white. And it's
Mm.
not very inviting and friendly.
And for those maybe people that maybe don't know, maybe witnesses or just casual listeners that aren't attached to Mormon or Jehovah's Witnesses, a ward is essentially just like a local congregation, correct?
Exactly. It's based
Yeah.
on where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like your local church.
Hmm.
Um,
So it sounds like you were able to leave and still keep your family.
Yes. And this is some things that I've said on my Instagram, and I've done some podcasts about this, or not podcasts, but posts that I've written about mixed faith marriage. And I've talked to women too, where they might have left the religion and their husband did too. They still end up in different places. Like, I just talked with a woman recently where her husband's atheist and she believes in God still, but she doesn't attend any church, any institution. So it just goes to show you can get married and you can change. I don't think you necessarily have to believe everything that your spouse believes. I think you have to have a relationship that's not built on religion.
Yeah.
It's got to be built on love and respect. And I love my husband.
yeah, that's great. I think too, as long as you have really great partnership and communication,
Yes.
you can navigate different trajectories efficiently or as best as possible. It's when the walls come up. It's so easy for friends, partners, everything. If you don't talk the shit out, it's very easy to start separating
Oh, absolutely.
without even
Yeah.
talking it through. It just is casually kind of the course of things that starts to happen.
Yes, and everyone's going to have different opinions on what my husband will do or what he should do. But at the end of the day, what's most important is my marriage and us communicating. So I've thought about writing something on my account talking about how I literally don't have the luxury of not having tough conversations. I have to have
Mm.
them consistently with my spouse.
Well, I know we have to close out soon, because you have an engagement to get to. I really
Yes.
appreciate you giving us time. I just want to close out, and you're more than welcome to ever come back, because I do think that maybe we have more to talk about. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, it went so fast.
It's crazy.
It did. It went very fast.
But just kind of quickly, where are you at now, kind of with your spirituality, your intentions for your social account,
Mhm.
and kind of what you're doing with your schooling? I'd love to chat about that very quickly.
Yeah, so I'm getting my master's in social work, and I'm thinking of possibly being a therapist. We'll see where I end up interning and doing my hours. But yeah, doing that. And then I'm writing on my account. I'm posting on unorthodox spirituality 4 to 5 times a week. And I created this account because I want people to have the flexibility to explore their spirituality, whatever that looks like. If you're agnostic, if you're a Christian, if you believe in some type of higher power. But I really do think that there is value in spirituality and reclaiming that space in a healthy way.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, like I said, maybe we can get you back on again and talk about this kind of next chapter in your life more in depth. I'm sure some of our listeners would love to hear that from you. So
Yeah, for sure.
down the line, if you're open and your schedule permits, we'll love to have you back on. I'm sure we could tap your brain just on so many things. So thank you for being so open and honest and with us with this conversation. Yeah, and then if you could call out your socials, we'll definitely add that to the notes. Where can people find you?
Yes, so you can go find me, yes, on Instagram at unorthodox spirituality, all one word.
And Amy, thanks so much again for your time. Our listeners are definitely going to appreciate this chat, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this journey in this era. If you found today's episode valuable, please share it with someone who might need it. Check the podcast description for our socials and other information.
Please consider supporting us at Patreon at patreon.com/culturepod. If you'd like to tell your story, please contact us at cult.chur.pod@gmail.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay free.